I haven't done a Sunday interview in so long, and I really should do them way more often because I do most of my interviews after I've been working all day and my brain is fried. And now I'm totally cool. I am rested. I stayed up till 2. I watched that Knives Out movie last night. Um, I guess 6 out of 10. It wasn't that great. It was okay. But yeah, so I'm feeling pretty good. I'm stoked to have my guest with me. I should be promoting stuff, but I don't have. I can only do that during the week. But I'm stoked to have my guest. So during the pandemic, when okay, I'm recording now. Stoked to have my guest during the pandemic when comedy clubs were shut down and comedians had nowhere to go but virtual shows. Niko Lukoff created the Facebook group Displaced Comedians. Displaced Comedians became the hub for over 10,000 comedians from all over the world to get booked on online shows, but more importantly, it created connections and friendships in the stand up community that still stand today. Recently, Nico parlayed a Twitter conversation into a guest spot on on Bill Burr's tour, which is a testament to the phrase "It doesn't hurt to ask." Here comes Nico Lukoff. Nico, how are you?
Hey, Scott, doing well, man. How are you this lovely morning?
It's great to have you on.
Hey, thanks for having me. Been wanting to do this
So,
for a while. I'm glad it works out.
yeah, so I think I was fairly early to jump into displaced comedians, but I didn't interact a whole lot. I just kind of watched what was going on, and I was one of those guys that didn't do a ton of online shows. I did the Plano thing, and then I did a few feedback mics and stuff like that. But yeah, I just didn't. I didn't do a whole lot, but I watched quite a few. And I'm going to jump on the one you're doing here later with Judah Freelander on Eventbrite because I'm a bachelor this week, and I got nothing to do but what I want to do. There's a ton of things I should be doing, but I'm just going to kick back and watch that.
I think you should be doing exactly that, Scott. I think you're doing the perfect thing for a Sunday afternoon to yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I just need to take some time off. But yeah, I thought Displaced Comedians was really cool, and some of the things has happened there that's kind of happened with this podcast. Can you talk about first off what gave you the idea to create it, and then just tell me what's come of it for you and other people, and some things that you've heard from other people from it.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate it. I appreciate you being a part of it too, and being and like you said, even not doing some of the shows because not everybody wants to do a Zoom. Zoom's weird,
Yeah.
it's a different thing. So like when I meet people, like, and when it comes up to like they almost don't want to feel like they're insulting me. Sometimes like, oh no, I didn't do any because I'm like, dude, relax. I don't. Everyone does their thing,
Hmm.
And so I had just started doing stand up about 7 months before the pandemic. I had done about 30 live open mics. I did it while I traveled for my job in sales. I'd never done it in my home comedy scene. I'm in Idaho, so Boise's my scene here. So I'd never been a part of that scene though uh, you know prior to the pandemic. And what just happened was when everything shut down, I just started, so I just got that first hit. I was like, I couldn't stop. I don't know what would have had to explode. Like that wasn't a possibility for me to stop working on this. So it's kind of, I think a combination of the right timing and some of my naiveness, I think that kind of led to
Yeah.
making this thing. It kind of was a perfect storm in that sense. So yeah, so I was at home and it just was like, hey, I still need to do this. And I noticed that one of the comedians, Carol Freeman, who I met in Tacoma, Washington, which is one of the areas that I'd done some open mics at, was doing a Zoom. She was hopping on a Zoom, and I just want to see what it was about. I just wanted to see, is this something that I could do or worth doing or whatever. I just want to check it out. So I don't know if you remember Rachel Rothenberg from the early days
Yeah.
of Zoomland. She
Hmm.
she was doing her Zoom open mic, and she's out of Salt Lake City, Utah. Great comic. She's in New York now, and she had a really cool thing she was doing and had like 25, 30 comics, I think, on there doing 5 minutes and just
Hmm.
watching people do sets in their living rooms or cars, and everyone was just kind of figuring it out. Saw Carol do her set and I'm like, this is pretty neat. This is something that I need to figure out. So I thought, okay, I didn't have a webcam or any equipment other than my laptop with the crappy webcam built. I didn't have like a good one. I was like, all right, what angle of my garage can I show people? And how do I stand here and tell jokes for a while? I didn't understand virtual backgrounds yet. And I went on and I did a set, which I actually watched like a couple years later, and it was kind of painful to see. But I talked for 5 minutes, and worse things had happened before. I didn't feel like I had I crushed it at some live thing or anything, but I got enough to go, okay, this is something. It's definitely not the same thing because duh, no one thinks it is because it's not, but it's not nothing. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
I got to figure out how to utilize this with this, however many days or years we're in this situation because we had no idea at the time. And So I started doing hers, and then I realized there were a couple different people from different scenes because as you know, and I don't know, or your visitor viewers, if they're not comedians, might not know. There's all these different Facebook groups for basically every comedy scene. There's a
Yeah.
group. So when I travel for work, the Northwest is my sales region. So I was in like Portland and Seattle area where I did most of them, some in California. So I would join those groups when I would go visit those scenes to try to see what open mics to go to, what's going on there. But then when everything shut down, I was watching each of those scenes, and each of those scenes, there's oftentimes like one or two people that were like, "Hey, I'm doing a Zoom. Hey, I'm doing a Zoom," and I was like, "Oh, so there's several people doing this, but people in different scenes just don't know about it." And those people in those scenes are focusing on their friends that are just like, hey, we're doing an open mic now just this way, just because we're not doing it live, which is
Mhm.
great. But then I was like, someone's got to organize this, or we're not going to like, there's value to organizing this and us knowing what's going on. So you can go, oh, here's this mic over here, this one. At that time, there's like 4 or 5. And I was like, oh, there's so many. Then it came out to be hundreds eventually.
Yeah.
Now back down to probably that 4 or 5 ish range. But, it's my supply and demand. So I just was thinking, all right, someone's got to organize this. And I was actually chatting with Rachel about that because she was talking about maybe doing something like that. And she kind of just didn't really want to or wasn't into it. And then I was like, well, I'm going to do that by this weekend. And I did. I made a Facebook group. I made that ridiculous. I really enjoy the cover photo, just a stupid,
Yeah.
it's Jack Nicholson in The
Yeah.
Shining. And then it's got, and I don't know how to do any graphics. This was me just drawing displaced comedians
Yeah.
like a
I'm glad you
child.
kept that. I like that. Yeah.
Thanks, man. I'm glad you do. It kind of shows like the roots of it. Is just like it's just a silly, weird ass thing. And then I made just one post in the group, like a main pin post or whatever the hell they've changed name over the years. Of just here's the list of the Zoom open mics, when they are, where they're based out of. Because some people are like, oh, it doesn't matter where they're like, it kind of does because you get to be in different scenes to an
Mhm.
extent. Who's running them? How much time you get? Are they streaming? Are they not? The information I thought would be pertinent. How do you sign up? That pertinent to accessing it. It ended up being just a really long post on Facebook. Whenever I would add one, it just took so long to update. So then I made the Google Sheets thing, and I didn't want to make it. My initial thought on that list was not. I kind of wanted you to be in the group, not like as like a gatekeeping thing, but I wanted it to be of a community, not just like
Mhm.
a website out there that doesn't live. But then it was like, all right, this has got to, just share it wherever you want to. Here's a spreadsheet, and then I would just find hosts that were doing stuff and interrogate them. And sometimes I'd be like, why is this guy asking me so many questions? Because because at the time I think some saw the value in it, but some were just like, what's this guy doing? And then it just built, and then it turned the reverse where people were then sending me a bunch of information eventually after I had like interrogated people and seek that out. And I started inviting, allowing anybody who wanted to join the group join, because I just thought if you saw this group, it's because you were a comic or a fan of comedy, someone who thought they'd want to start comedy. And that's really what I kind of was making it for. Because I got friends that are like just personal friends that aren't comedians, but I like them being there just because they got to see behind the scenes. And some people that are just
Yeah.
comedy fans, it's fine if they're not actual comedians. And a lot of people on there are never going to do comedy in live form, and that's
Right.
fine. Just a way to connect. And then it just kind of blew up and had a few hundred people in a couple of days, and then I was pretty excited about that. And then I started actually paying attention a little bit to everyone that I was clicking on, and it grew and grew. And as of right now, I think we've kind of, there's still people do request to join, and I let a lot of it in. I used to try to block off some spam stuff and then have to beat that away when it gets in. Um, but we've been at that 10,200 mark for I think a few months now, and it's just grown and grown and been a place to connect. And as you've seen, and you asked what I get from it, or kind of
Yeah,
what's been for me.
and I think it's pretty cool that you we're only 7 months in when you started the group, so you did quite a few of the virtual mics and things like that. How did you do you feel like you came out of it better at what you do than when you went into it?
Oh yeah, I had like maybe 2 minutes of okay material. Out of Zoom, I had, more than that, but it was so weird because I lived in this for so long. Like my first, I don't know how many sets, and the comics in my local scene could tell you probably, but I sounded, but I was told like I seemed, I wouldn't say polished, like I was like that stuff I was saying was perfect. I just mean like I sounded like I knew what I was saying or it was clear what I was doing, but my timing was so weird because on Zoom, I know after this doing that Zoom show is gonna mess with my brain because I haven't done it in a little while because the timing's different. If one person laughs, it takes over the whole Zoom. It can, and then someone could just take a bong rip, open a bag of chips, and there goes your punchline. Your internet
Yeah.
drops, like kids run in. That hasn't happened in a while, but just all these things that I think Zoom. I know that Zoom gave me material and connection. It didn't make me a better performer on live stage.
Mhm.
I had to peel away a lot, and I'm still working to today to be doing that because I've been back to doing live stuff for, gosh, a year and a half, 2 years now, I think, about a year and a
Mhm.
half ish. Been pretty consistent. But I was doing Zooms like 1 to 3 a day was not out of norm for me at the time. So I was kind of just lived in there. And yeah, absolutely better comic. If I hadn't been doing this, I can't even imagine what would have happened if I didn't. But if I didn't, there's no way to have had any material.
Yeah.
I could write
Yeah.
recipes, but not get to taste it and share it with people to see how it goes. Like
Right.
this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, one thing I found is that you really need an outlet to say the words that you've written out loud once in a while just so you can hear them back. And I'm one of the things I've done that isn't necessarily online comedy, but through your group, I've made connections with people where I'm on online writing groups.
Oh, cool.
And the nice thing about that is you come in with a premise or whatever, and it's kind of like the thing I'm doing on here now, is this anything, where you go through it, they give you tags, they tell you if it's funny or not and stuff like that. So I'm on one, active on one that Dan Bublitz started,
Oh,
that we
nice.
do on Sunday nights, and it's really refreshing because it's good people, and it's people who are a little bit more seasoned, especially more than I am, and it's really cool to be able to bounce that off people and then take it to a mic or a showcase or whatever, and you're a little bit more confident of what you're bringing forth, and just saying it out loud really helps.
Absolutely. Honestly, that's like top favorite thing about this whole thing was those experiences. I'm glad Dan's doing that. He's awesome. I talk to him all the time about stuff and get advice on things. And um, very guy, funny comic, and and the workshop stuff, like the folks doing the hot breath stuff,
Yeah.
Joel Byers group, and the people involved with that. They that was awesome. Like you go on and you just have an hour. Everyone's doing 5 minutes. They got 3 minutes of feedback. You're just being honest. You're not kissing anyone's ass. You're not just looking. You're just being honest and just wanting to help each other get better. And I ran a couple of Zooms, not a lot, but I did a couple where that's what I did. Is where I think I saw a thing about a year ago is like the first one I did where I just uh, invite some people in. We have 5 or 6 comics. I would make sure to have at least one or two like very seasoned comics that do this all the time.
Hmm.
Um, and we would just go around and do sets, do 5 minutes each, and then just take as long as we needed to discuss any feedback from anybody. And that's one thing I liked also about the doing the mics and the shows is that like right now I have OneNote open on my laptop. It's way easier to do that because when you're at a live show, it's a little more awkward to take a note. You look kind of like an asshole on your phone,
Yeah.
but I'm like, oh, my friend just said something and something clicked that was different. I have a different perspective than they do. They have a different perspective than me. Like if we're connected, we're helping each other. How much better could we all get if we just helped each other?
Yeah.
Because we're
Yeah.
good at coming up with stuff on our own, but we're stuck in our own thing And then if someone's over here saying something, you might think of something. So in Zoom, I love just noting something down. And then usually those people have, we've communicated with, so it's not just like someone completely random. But sometimes it is like, hey, mind if I throw you a thing? I thought of something during whatever, and they're like,
Yeah.
usually they're like, great. And then it's something, and if they're like, no, fuck you or whatever, I'm like, okay, I don't care. And same if they want to throw me something, obviously I might not use it, but like it's just how much better can we be? So when you're in that environment, when you're sitting and you're actually focusing, like the ones you're talking about, and I was talking about too, like that's that's powerful. And some of the locals here in the scene have talked about doing some workshop stuff. But if we do that, and I'm a part of it anyway, that's the format I want. We actually do it on stage, not just because like right now, I know we're going to talk some bits back and forth, and that's great. But like if you're as a group doing it, I think hey, let's just do stats how you would do them, and then let's talk about it in between or
Mhm.
after or whatever. I like that a lot.
Right.
So I'm glad that you got the value out of it. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's really cool that when you get different perspectives like that, I've had jokes that come from a certain perspective, mine, and
It's the only one you got, you know?
I get these other perspectives, and I've actually retooled jokes that still have the same spirit of the joke and maybe even the same punchline, but I've brought it around to where either it's more universal for all audiences, or it hits on things that I didn't even think about, but is still once again in the spirit of the joke. And that is so helpful to get that type of feedback that you can move on with it.
I love that so much. And I had that happen recently where I did a set that I was pretty happy with. I knew it needed some work, and I was chatting with the comic who's doing this, for a decade or longer, whatever, so way longer than me,
Mhm.
and just is really good at it. And they watched the video and gave me some honest things. That part of it was like, oh, I wish they were just like, it's so great, of course, but like that doesn't help you grow. But it was like, this stuff was good, whatever. But like these are the things that to think about in perspective that I didn't have at all. Cause like I said, you're you on me, like, we're not going to have someone else's
Yeah, yeah.
the same
My
way.
biggest problem is if I do pop culture references,
Uh,
I'm going back too many years sometimes.
pop
Eh,
culture.
yeah.
Yeah. Now it's,
Yeah, and like TV shows and stuff like that. Like I've got one where I mention Anson Williams from Happy Days, and it's I lost almost everybody that was like under the age of 45.
I mean,
And
I watched it on Nick and Night. I couldn't tell you who that person is.
yeah, yes,
But
yeah, and it's etched in my brain. So if I'm doing a show that everybody's 55 plus, I'm totally cool with it, but
yeah.
if it's a mixed audience, no, it's not gonna work. Yeah, that's great. And one of the cool things I saw out of Displaced Comedians is that the connections that were made during the pandemic have come over to real life, and
Yeah.
people now. People know bookers. There's actual business being done because of the connections made on Displaced Comedians, and that's got to make you feel pretty good.
It really does. I love like so I still travel for work, and I'll go somewhere. Like I did an open mic in it's near Seattle. Forget the name of the city, blanking on it. But I will just did an open mic, like just a standard like bar open mic, with 10 humans in there and a handful of comics and a bartender, which actually that's actually a lot for a real audience at an open
Uh-huh.
mic. Um, and I got off, after the thing, we're all hanging out, and some dude just came up to me and was like, "Hey, man, I've been doing your Zooms. I've been on your Zoom stuff. Like, we had never met. I had never been on the same Zoom like we didn't remember being on the same Zoom, but knew some of the same people who do a lot of the same Zooms. So we're like, we had that connection that no one else around us at the moment did. We're like, oh my gosh, you saw the thing, but like we weren't. But like the fact that we hadn't connected directly, but did know the same people like very recently, and we're around people who like had no idea about this world was just
Mhm.
so fun to just like meet and hug and take pictures. Like, oh, hey, I made so and so, and then I've met people who I have hung out with and done stuff with, and and that's been really cool. So that's the fun emotional side of it. But the on business side, yeah, I think that's really neat that people have been able to do that, and it's been beneficial to me too. I don't know that there's a specific like booking because run a Facebook group or whatever, but it certainly got me to different avenues. There's actually one thing that I hadn't really been very public about, the monetary side of it, but a couple years ago there was a production company out of LA hit me up that was doing something with Variety in partnership with Facebook. Black
Mm,
History Month, they were showcasing professional Black women comedians and interview and having them on with. They wanted to have some Black women comedians on the Zoom to be able to like talk about their life and their what they're doing and getting advice and stuff like that. So like a big thing that was streamed, had to a bunch of people, and each of those comics that they brought on got a decent handful of cash, and I got a little money too. So that was
that's
just kind of
great.
fun. I was like, oh
Yeah.
sweet, hey honey, look, all that time I spent in my garage on the computer, there's some money from
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And it was doing something neat, and it was kind of fun. So like connections like that have just been really cool, and I'm very fortunate to be able to be connected with so many uh, neat people all over and work together.
Yeah. And one of the main, things that they talk about in marketing yourself and marketing in general is just when your name is mentioned that somebody remembers it for something, and hopefully something good, but just
Yeah,
that name
yeah,
recognition really helps. And I know you've done that for yourself, and I know a lot of people out of the group have been able to do that as well.
that's great. I'm really glad. I got up to a couple open mics when they announced me and they explained displaced comedians or try to, and it's
Yeah.
always amusing. And I love it.
Yeah.
I'm not upset about it. It's funny, but then I just go up and I just go. So I started that. So first I want to say sorry, guys. That was all my fault.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's great. I want to get into the Bill Burr thing because
yeah, yeah.
I read so I read your post about it, but I also read your the two articles you have on Medium, and I think it's one of those things that it really cements the fact you don't get anywhere if you don't ask, as far as comedy is concerned. So can you go through the you don't have to get into the minute details, but then I got
Sure.
a couple people I want to ask about. But
Okay.
I want to. Oh, and before I get into this, I got introduced to a guy, and I'm helping him launch his podcast from Boise, Chris Foster.
Yeah. Hey,
Uh,
Chris. I don't know if he's watching, but yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
awesome.
through you, and he said that you mentioned me at some point, and he listened to one of my episodes and liked it, so he sent me a note and he said, "Yeah, I'm thinking about starting a podcast." And I said, "Well, I'm starting podcast consulting, so let's get together and talk about it." And so I'm
Oh,
helping him
cool.
put everything together for that. So I thought that was cool. But
You know, it's so
back to
fun.
Bill. Yeah, yeah, it's
Oh,
great.
sorry. Just real quick on that. So I actually hung out. I hang out with Chris all the time because we go to the same, mics and shows and stuff.
Uh,
I was there a couple nights ago. He recorded his first episode, and I was hanging out with him and the comic who he just interviewed on that episode, and was talking about you. And he's all stoked and really appreciates your help and stuff too. So
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah. It's neat to make connections like that. That wouldn't have
Yeah.
happened if I didn't know you and the group. So the whole Bill
Cool.
Burr thing, give a synopsis of what happened and how it happened and how you ended up actually getting on stage.
So if you read the articles, I'm not great at synopsises, but I will do my best.
Yeah. Oh, you can
So
give me the long version. I'm not going anywhere.
It started with just I was at an open mic in Boise. We got great open mics. The host and producer Haley Lenhart Weiss of Blue City Comedy was announcing Nathan Scott Ford, very funny comics, doing it for 22 years. Great dude, and he's here in our Boise scene. And she was announcing him just come up in the open mic, and he had mentioned like having a dream that he got to open for Bill Burr or something like that. So she was announcing him, was like, "Hey, everybody, right now, get your phones out and tweet at Bill Burr and tell him that Nathan Scott Ford, comic Nate Ford, should open for you at when you come here in December." And she was just like getting kind of amped about it. It was kind of fun, and a couple days passed, and I had tweeted like 5 times ever. And I don't have like notifications on my phone for Twitter still or anything.
Yeah.
I just went on. I was like, oh, I'll just see who did it, but nobody did. I was like, what? You just click, click, click. How hard is it to fucking whatever?
Yeah.
And I get that some people like I don't the thing inside you that goes like, don't ask, you might be a shit or whatever. It just isn't a thing that's ever been inside this. So whatever. And then I just did. I was like, hey, Bill Burr, Comic Night 4, my friends, is very funny. You should open for you or something, something like that. Be a great opener
Mhm.
for you. And he come. And then I was just fucking around. A couple hours later, looked at my phone and he replied. And I was like, what the hell? This is insane. And part of it was like, I'm so new. I'm like, is this normal? Like, is this
Yeah.
how it? I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only person to ever reach out as a celebrity comedian and get to do something with him. But like, I didn't know what level of like, oh, okay, I guess that's something they do. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. And I guess it's not really as common as I guess as I thought. I don't know. But then he replied in such Bill Burr fashion. He just wrote. He said he replied and said, "I heard he's a self-promoting cunt."
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a credit right there to be able to be like, Comic Nate 4 come to stage was recently called a self-promoting cunt by Bill
Yeah.
Burr on Twitter. Would have been a great credit. But then he replied again and just said, I'll give you 5 up top. And the way on Twitter, how you reply and it copies both people, I acted. I mean, I saw an opportunity. Let's be real.
Yeah.
I DM'd him like, so you talk about me too? Cause like we're both in the thing. So I just DM'd said, either way, really appreciate it. So at this point, I think I'm going to go buy a ticket for $100 to go see my friend Nate Ford open. And I'm just going to have an amazing time. I'm so excited. But then I DM'd Bill Burr, and then 9 days he replied. 9 days later, he just wrote, I'll put both you bums up.
Uh-huh.
And I was just like, oh, that's so great. I'm so happy. And then I posted about it and I got nervous because then the venue was like, why are you posting about this? Who says you're on this show? I'm like, oh, don't make anyone mad. Sorry, never mind. Closer to the show, I actually did post about it, tag him. But and then so for like we're like, okay, we're doing this. This is awesome. We're all excited. But then like a couple months passed. It was 6 months of excitement and fear because I was always so Bill ended up following me on Twitter, which I legit think might have still been an accident and he just doesn't know yet. I don't know. So I was 6 months. I was like, I never really tweet anyway, but I really gotta make sure to don't post anything that makes a guy go be like, fuck these guys. you know?
Yeah.
And every time I message him, I'm like, at any point, he could just be like, these guys, this isn't worth it. So I'm also like strategizing with Nate sometimes when I'm messaging with him, like, because we want to get the info. I'm like, I can't just go to the show and be like, hey, Bill said, let me in. Like,
Yeah.
how do we actually do this? And he's like, I'm going to send you this info. And then that didn't happen for a little while. Then I reached out and then again, and then it went back and forth and then got it all, did the whole thing. And got to go do a handful of minutes on stage in front of 9 to 10,000 people in Idaho at a place that's mostly does rodeos and
Yeah.
meet Bill Burr and watch him. So some of my material didn't hit how I wanted. It was mixed results. I definitely got good reactions from a lot of people, but it's probably the most divisive stuff I do. A little bit of roasting religion, a little bit, and
Uh-huh.
not the demographic necessarily for that, unless you just want to see what happens, and that's what I did. But I got to actually, just meeting and talking with Bill and like watching him perform was incredible, and getting to see Nate go up and kill it. It was just awesome experience.
Did you get to experience the whole thing about playing in a large auditorium like that, of the laughs starting from the front and going to the back and
Oh,
and getting that
it was
feedback?
so weird. Well,
Yeah.
it was an arena, so it's like just massively tall, and it was just, yeah, it was weird the delays because part of me going on was like, oh, Zoom trained me for this. For years, I've been talking to just a vast open space and hoping, but and having weird timing. But even doing it still, I got off stage and was like kicking myself out. Next time, I'll do better on the timing because even though I knew logically what to do when it was happening, I still paused a little too long between lines just to kind of be just how it was all working and in that moment.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it was weird, kind of like in a weird way of Zoom because you have just a big vast space where you just can't see shit. I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of shows you can't see anything, but I didn't have as bright of a light in my face directly as I felt like I do at a normal show. And then just kind of see on the corners in the stands, I see people, and then first couple of rows you could see. But other than that, it's just a big open space where you're kind of floating. And honestly, the nerves leading up to that day was way more than actually walking on that stage. Walking on that stage, like it was actually that was the easiest part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
terrified I'm gonna drop my mic. Like, what's gonna like? I spent all day. I took the day off my day job and was like pacing in the living room. I have my mic in a stand, and I'm like rehearsing. I'm like, what if I screw up this line? And that wasn't any of the issue
Uh-huh.
because I've done that at regular shows, screwed up lines that I've done a million times. But that
Yeah.
part wasn't a problem. It was just it was interesting and it was neat.
Yeah. And you had logistics that you had to think about because they gave you a mic and you
Oh
had
yeah.
to. Did you bring Nate up and then Nate had to bring up Dean, or how was it the other way
So
around?
so they're around. So Nate goes up, they hand him a wireless mic. He does his set. Then he's to announce me. He announces me, give him a big hug. He gets off stage, and I was like, "That's my favorite self-promoting cunt," because he had brought that up at the beginning of his set
Uh
too.
huh.
And Dean Del Rey's walking on stage, the feature, who I just announced. I was just feeling great, just getting to shout that and just announce and all this energy. I'm walking off stage and I'm like starting to kind of hand it to him, and he's like, "No, I got this." So like 10,000 people see me be like, "Oh, damn it!" So I try to act cool. And
Yeah.
we had some friends that are comedians in the audience, and I was explaining it, and they're like, "Oh, that's what happened." I'm like, "Yeah, you saw that." He's like, "I don't know if like regular people notice that as much, but the comics definitely did because they had a different mic." And then while I'm walking off stage, I'm holding the mic that I had. I'm like, I'm sure they cut the mic, but what if they did? And so I'm like, put it back in the stand that I'm next to the stairs and get the fuck out of the way
Uh huh.
before I start just kind of losing it. It was so cool too because then he's on stage going, and then we're just a couple of sofas off stage. We're on a couple of sofas off stage with a monitor showing the front view of the act because we're off to the side of the curtain separating us from the audience, and it's just me, my buddy Nate, and Bill Burr just fucking around on our phones at a show waiting for our
Yeah.
thing. Like it was just like this is incredible. And then getting
Uh,
to see Bill go up, and it's fun too because while Dean was up, like we hadn't taken a picture together yet. We had just hung out with Bill before in his dressing room before Nate and I went up. But then Bill just goes like, "Hey, we should take the picture now," just because he knew that we wanted to, but didn't want to make it awkward for us. And like
yeah.
he's just a class act, man. And I've always been a fan of his. And I'm not just saying this because he let us do this, but just how he acts like just leveled up even further in my book of just
Yeah.
how he is as a person. And yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. He's one of those comedians that really like comedy, and it's a testament. He gave you guys a shot, and that's great. Can this is totally off comedy subject, but can you talk about Club Soda Kenny, because I know who he is, and I've heard so many great stories about him, just about how he acts and stuff. What was it like? Because he's Bill's manager. So what was it
Yeah.
like interacting with him?
So, the day of, he's the one that emailed us. Actually, so the back and forth about the show, like we got the final, yes, it's happening in our souls 9 days before it.
Uh,
So we're just like freaking out. So he's who we're emailing with. Then he's like, "Yeah, we'll send you the information, like when to be there, whatever." Like a couple days before the show. Then like 5 hours before the show, we get an email like where to park and go. And we're like, "All right, now we know where to go." So we're in the dressing room, and it's probably I think it's like right about 8. The show was supposed to start at 8, but of course it didn't start about 8:30. And we're in our dressing room, and this tall dude who's obvious just seems like a tall New York dude with the black jacket on, kind of like the Brad Garrett kind of guy. Brad
yeah.
Garrett, sort
Hmm.
in a way. It just comes in just very solemn, but very just everything he says has a purpose. Everything he does have a purpose, but he's not being pretentious or aggressive or
Yeah.
like putting anybody down in any way. He just comes in. He just like he knocked on the outside door, the door that was open. Then knocked
Uh-huh.
again, and we're like, "What the fuck?" And we're like, "Oh yeah,
Uh-huh.
come in," because we couldn't see the way the room was. And he came in, and he's like, "Oh hey guys," and we obviously we knew who he was just from our communication. But he's like, "Hey, yeah, I'm Kenny." I'm like, "Oh yeah, we've been emailing. Hey, thanks. How's it going? Yeah, I'm Nate. I'm Niko. Da da da." He's like, "Cool guys. So we're gonna start the show at about 8:30. Is that okay?" I'm like, we're like fucking just treating us like respectable, like we're peers. We're all just doing the shit together, And
Hmm.
we're like, yeah, I guess that'll be okay.
Yeah.
And then he's just talking about how we'll bring each other up, and someone had explained a little bit before he touched on that how it was working, and then he goes, just totally chill. He's like, so you guys want to meet Bill? We're like,
Mhm.
yeah, I guess that'd be all right. And then he introduced us to him. So he was just chill and nice, and you could just tell that if he's gonna do something that's gonna be done right, and you're all right with him.
Mhm.
And I think also some of that was he's probably just really good at diffusing stressful situations and here's two guys who have never done this capacity but thing before, when he
Yeah.
probably knew that.
Uh-huh.
uh Getting to, like, Nate's done like theaters and stuff, but like both of us, this was the biggest thing, audience wise he'd ever done. So just a nice guy. Like, we didn't really have a whole lot of communication after that. We're all hanging out in a room talking with Bill and Dean, and eventually at one point he just goes, Kenny just says, "Hey, so you guys want to start the show?" And we're like, "I guess, yeah, all right, I guess we can do that." And
Yeah.
then took us out, and he's the one that took our picture too, and just a good solid guy. And then I looked up some stuff about him, and as him being called Club Soda Kenny and stuff, and I learned more about him, and I'm like, that dude's a badass.
Yeah, he is. He is. Yeah. Learned about him. I used to listen to Opie and Anthony all the time on Sirius XM, and he was like a regular on their show, and
Oh,
they would
cool.
just give him shit just mercilessly, and he took it all, and he very rarely like would fight back or anything like that, and but he knows what he is,
Yep, that's it.
and he's probably one of those guys that could break either one of them in half at any point he wanted to, but he knows he doesn't have to. And I've
Yeah,
always thought he's a cool guy.
yeah, like a guy who doesn't have to say what he is just that
Yeah,
much more powerful too.
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and it's a good
What
dude.
was this your first time to watch Dean Del Rey perform?
Yeah, I never met him. I never seen him before. I do, like, a lot of people since then have pointed out some stuff that he's done, but
Yeah,
yeah, no, first thing anything with him or of him.
yeah. I love that guy. He used to work with Mark Maron quite a
Yeah, I
bit,
heard they do a
and
podcast together.
yeah, and I watched. It was in Grand Rapids, I think, Michigan. I went to see him, and he opened for Marin, and I just think he's great, very underrated.
Oh
So
man, he was fantastic. He just
so you've
killed.
had this stuff happen, and
Yeah.
you've been pretty serious about comedy before that. How did getting on and opening for Bill Burr, how did that change your outlook on comedy, and what kind of goals do you have coming out of that?
Ah, these are great questions. It's funny going in. I was like, all right, going in, I'm either gonna retire afterward, just be like that. That was it. That was fun. I had a good time. Because like I've got a real job, and honestly, do I think I'm ever gonna have a be full time professional comedian and not have? Probably not.
Mhm,
I got married, got three kids. I have, I'm not going out there taking big financial risks.
mhm,
But I'm also having a lot of fun and figuring out ways to kind of put these things together. Um, so after that, I mean, it's been neat, obviously, being able to talk about it and then people know about it. I've been posting about it. As far as like professionally, I don't know how much it's changed what I want to do, but it just kind of opens my eyes up for what could be
mhm,
potentially. Like, does that mean I think I'm gonna headline that venue someday? I have no idea. Most statistically, not gonna happen. But
mhm,
am I gonna try to get up again on somewhere like that? Yeah, yeah. And have I tweeted at some people on behalf of a couple of people, not for me to get up because places that I couldn't even get to,
mhm.
because why not?
Yeah,
With the consent of those people that I'd be communicating about. Yeah, because I swung the first time and I hit it, so I know it can happen. And if I hadn't hit, then I might not be swinging so many. And every swing after that might be a miss. Every single one.
yeah,
I mean, never tweet at somebody who gives somebody a spot ever again. That's very possible.
yeah,
Um, but more recently, the bit that I was working on there, that kind of turned into a thing where like this needs to be some merch on this. So I'm thinking more about the business side and how I can help finance, because some of those, shows that you drive several hours to don't pay enough to do the gas and the hotel and the
yeah,
whatever, but might still want to do it, and ways to supplement that. And I've always just been entrepreneurial since I was a kid. I've always been a salesperson and been doing something business wise, and run businesses that did ship things, small items, but this is just a little bit different. And
yeah,
realizing, hey, the business side kind of is, yeah, selling tickets and whatever, but selling merch, selling booze, and it's in the way of being the entertainer that night. So if I can bring some merch with me and make some money on that, and kind of justify that trip a little more and have some experience. I don't know where it's going to go. I do
Mhm.
think I am going to be able to headline at some point. I'm not saying like theater wise, like normal humans, they hear headline, they might think like opening and being someone that everybody knows. That just means doing 45 to 60 at some venues and being able to actually do it and have a good time and do it successfully.
Yeah.
And actually just a couple months ago, I finally decided to myself or told myself that I was going to do that at some point. I had never even thought about it really. I just thought I was just going to have fun, see what I can do 10, 15 here and there, just try
Mhm.
to get really good and have a lot of fun. So just trying to balance both those things. And if it pays for the trips to do comedy and maybe a little more for my household, and that's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things that almost every comedian I've talked to that has done it for a number of years is it's got to be fun. And you've talked about
Oh
you've
yeah.
mentioned that it's fun so many times that if it becomes to the point where it's not fun for you and all you're thinking about is the business, then you probably shouldn't be doing it anymore because you're not going to get any better and you're not going to enjoy it and you're going to end up just despising everything you do that's comedy related. So keeping it fun is definitely one of the more important things
Oh yeah.
about actually surviving and stand up.
And honestly, business is fun for me. Figuring out the puzzle pieces of merchant and shipping and all these different things I'm thinking through right now, different website shopping cart systems, how I want to do it. And it sounds boring, but it's exciting to me. So
Yeah.
I think if I can get that part of my joy from that and still be able to work on just the comedy itself, is great. Because when I travel for work, I don't travel as much as I used to for work. But when I did, about every other week, I might be gone for 3 to 4 nights. I could sit in my room watching Netflix or just go out and talk to strangers and try to
Yeah.
have fun and make people laugh. And I'm
Yeah.
very extroverted on and off stage. So that's just, it feeds me.
That's great. That's great. Well, I really respect what you did, both with displaced comedians and the fact
Thanks,
that
man.
you just parlayed your way into a opening spot for Bill Burr. I think that's great. And that's one thing. So being in sales, I'll say that I've been in sales for most of my life as well. And being in sales, I think gives you a little bit of a leg up in comedy because it makes you not afraid to ask because a lot of comics are very artsy. They're very introverted and they never feel like it's the right time to ask. And the funny thing is in sales, you got to get like 100 no's or whatever to get a yes or to do that. So we don't care how many people we ask, and
Yeah.
we know that the person that says no isn't going to make us feel they don't think about us after saying no. So you could go back to that same person 6 months later and then they'll say yes, because it's the right time and the right place. But yeah, sales definitely, I guess it gives you a thicker skin about stuff like that. And the no's don't mean as much and the yeses are fine, but you got to get to the next one too.
Yeah, so I'm glad you said it's interesting because like I'll reach out. So like I'm going to Portland next month, and it's been neat because every show I've done there in the last several, like I've been there several times last year, and every time I go, I'm on different shows with different people. A lot of times, one of the comics on that lineup is producing a different show, so it's
Mhm.
just next time, hey, da. But the producers that haven't seen me in a while, or even if that comic hasn't seen me in a while, I'll shoot him a clip or whatever. And then if I get turned down, would I like for them to say, yeah, sure. But guess what? In 6 months, I'm going to be a better comedian. And I'm going to send
Mhm.
you another clip and say, hey, coming through again on this date, just checking to see if I might be, if that, whatever. Like, it's not, I'd rather be told yes, sure. But it's kind of like sales, asking for the sales, kind of like I was thinking, I was reading, kind of like it's the punchline. It's the most exciting part too. You've done all the work,
Yeah.
and it's like this is gonna work or this is gonna do it or it's not right now.
Mhm.
You'll get this sale, you place this order for you, blah, 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 whatever. I'm asking you right now to laugh at all this shit that I built up. And if you don't, well, shit, I'm going to try again soon and I might tag them. So not the exact same thing. And while the experience of doing sales kind of does give you a thicker skin, I think it's also just you do sales because you have that prior,
Yeah.
I think too.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. You
develop
do.
it and enhance it too, but that does just the whole thing building that and being that, and just not really giving a shit. Like I said, it's nice when I'd rather win or whatever, but like,
Yeah.
it's like, all right, well, next time I'm going to be better at it. And there's been some shows that I've been excited about that have been like turned me down, and then I'm like, okay, and then I was on afterward, and then made it even that much sweeter.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Most definitely. So we're at a point in the show that's my new favorite part of the show, and I don't have a sounder for it yet. I don't know if I'm ever even going to do one. It's called "Is This Anything," where we each bring a bit or two to the podcast, and we give each other notes on it. So since you're the guest, you get to decide if you go first or I go first.
I'm gonna have you go first on this, and I'm looking forward to this too.
Okay,
Both of
excellent.
us looking forward to, but yeah.
So mine is this is one I don't think I've said it out loud in this particular way. It's an old joke that I did way back when I first started, but it never really hit the way I wanted it. And so I wrote this differently.
I love doing that.
So
You go back when you're a better comic, and it's like, oh shit.
yeah, yeah, I can make this better. So here it goes. You know, the world may be a burning hell, but one thing you kids got is your pot is so much better than I had when I still had hair and a positive outlook on life. You got the hybrid, you got strains for about any feeling that you want, and most of all, you got quality control. We had two varieties of weed when I was a kid, mostly seeds and mostly stems. One thing the marijuana industry hasn't been able to do, though, is in fixing the mystery of how an edible is going to hit. It's never exactly what you want. If I take an edible before a party just to take the edge off my social anxiety, I end up being found asleep on the dog bed the next morning. And when I just want to chill and watch some X-Files before I go to bed, you'll find me at 2 a.m. arranging the food in my fridge by the way it sounds when I chew it. And end joke.
That's awesome. How close to that? What was the original version? Do you remember?
It was only really the first part, but I went into
Okay.
more stuff about hybrids and strains and
Hmm.
vaping and all that kind of stuff. And the punch was mostly seeds, mostly
You stopped
stems.
right there, which that's
Yeah,
funny, but then you keep going, and I really like the detail of the by the way it sounds. That's so great. Just all that, like
yeah.
how it makes you feel. Oh man, that's good. Ways to improve it though. Something I thought of when you were saying the world's burning, something about the world burns and you burning trees, a term for
Uh-huh.
smoking weed, burning trees. There might be something fun in there.
Yeah.
Um, Everyone, there's a lot of diet conscious people, and I'm part of my bit. One of the bits I'm going to talk about is thinking about that. Is I don't know. I was thinking something about also worrying about how many carbs are in a gummy or something like that. I got to worry about this and that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a thing. That's
And they're
fun.
they're actually developing strains now that don't give you the munchies. They call it diet pot. And
What?
yeah,
Diet
and
pot, diet pop, diet pot, go
yeah.
diet pop. All right, that's awesome. It's weird
Yeah,
because
I
as an adult, I get less. I'm able to push past the munchie phase a little more as an adult than I was as a teenager. I was like, I just got to eat. Now I'm just like, all right, I've consciously thought about that. I might eat a shit ton right now,
yeah.
but I can. It's interesting. Yeah, and it is different. And man, I'd do that on stage in a second. I mean, I'm not going. I mean, if I was you, I'd say go on and
Yeah.
at
Yeah, I'm
least
gonna
as a mic or something.
yeah, I'm gonna try it tonight. There's a mic tonight, and I'm gonna try it. But it's funny. In most cases, I mean, we don't want to turn this into pot talk, but in most cases, I'm pretty good about staving off the munchies too. But last night was awful. I was watching movies, and it was like 1 in the morning, and I ate 6 Eggo waffles.
Dude, put that somewhere in it. That's so
Yeah.
good. I've eaten 6 Eggo waffles, and now I'm doing this. Like they're
Yeah,
I would throw something like that, and then organizing the thing. And it's not funny to say you push back munch. It's funnier to
yeah,
succumb and utilize it, obviously.
yeah. All
I don't
right.
know. It's a weird neat thing because like people say, "Oh, that's a plot comic," but dude, it's hilarious. There's so many fun things,
Yeah,
and the way the world's changing, we can all connect in a different way.
yeah.
It's super fascinating.
And really for younger audiences, when I get on stage, I look like a professor or something like that. So they don't expect me to be somebody who would talk about weed. And so it kind of takes them off guard and that gets them listening. But I've got another story that and I'm not going to even try it, but I'm working around the telling my kids the story of the first time I tried cocaine because it's a great story and it's fantastic, but I'm still getting around the fact of I'm waiting until they both turn 30 because my son turns 30 this year. I'm waiting
Yeah.
till they both turn 30 because I didn't want to influence them into into doing something that I told them was cool when they were younger, but after they're 30, it's not my problem anymore. So I yeah, and that I got
That's
that
funny.
dialed down, but the whole story part is probably like maybe an 8-minute bit. So that takes a lot of work. So yeah, it's wild.
That's fun. Well, if you ever feel like it, you whenever do it and shoot it to me, I'd love to hear it
Yeah,
and tell you any thoughts on it.
yeah.
Um,
This is one I'm actually going to have to
what's one do
write
here? I know.
down
Oh yeah,
because I don't write everything down. I'll just write the premise down and play with it. But this one I'm going to have to write down like almost like a blog, and then
it sounds like it.
and then cut out the bad stuff after that.
Yeah, that that seems like you should. I that sounds like a great way to do that one on the seeds and stems too, because I think some audience either they might not know or it'd be just funny to point out, be like, by the way, seeds and stems are these things where because they might have never even fucking seen a seed or a stem
Yeah,
on weed before because it's so perfect in that. And you can comment on like how perfect in that container is like these perfect. Those don't grow on trees, folks. They don't. They do, but first
yeah,
they have this
yeah.
or whatever. Perfect weed
There's
doesn't grow on trees. I mean, whether it's
yeah,
true or not,
there's more to the plant than the beautiful bud that you guys get as the end product.
back
And
in my day, we have to carry this stalk
yeah,
20 miles in the snow. We blow it, we breathe on it to dry it out. And then we would we wait 72 hours for some dude to show up that we hope didn't rob us
yeah,
just so we could feel better.
yeah.
You little bastards have it luck, have it good.
Oh man. Yeah, I could add a shit ton to that because I
Oh
had a lot
yeah.
of weird experiences. So yeah. Excellent. Okay, it's your turn, bud. And you
All right.
said that you might bring a couple, and that's totally cool. I'm not going
Yeah.
anywhere.
So the one that is a little more further through that I've been doing, um, uh, that I've been doing a bit. I can do a shorter version of it here, but just thinking of just different ways to go with it. Where I was talking about experience I had where I'm not even say it the same way as the actual bit, just talk about the bit a little bit. But basically, I was raised Jewish. I don't really follow any particular religion. My wife's a full on pagan witch, all this stuff. And then our oldest son, he's 13. He did a while back. He was like, "Hey guys, I'm Christian now. I'm gonna be Christian."
Mhm.
And we're like, oh shit, this is gonna be crazy. When he did tell me this, I was like, all right, we got to figure this out as a fam. Like, how do we approach this? Not saying
Uh-huh.
you're a bad person, someone's a bad person for being any religion, but like we're not that religion. So whatever it is, just a different thing to deal with, you know. So when I gave him a big hug and I was like, it's gonna be okay, you know, we'll get through it. And some of my best friends are Christian, you know, trying to
Mhm.
relate. And but couldn't you just be gay? Like something that'd be cool, like some different, way easier to deal with. And then going into about how my wife's a witch and how that's just makes it kind of a weird dynamic and a turn that I've been working on a little bit recently. And that is like it's like we got a pagan, a Jew, and a Christian. We're a joke, we're a punchline. We're uh we're a hacky Netflix series.
Uh-huh.
you know
Yeah.
we call it that son of a witch. um, which is silly and dumb, but I love it. I love silly wordplay and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And then going through it, and then like we're like, oh, where'd we go wrong? Maybe it's just a phase. And then the whole thing, kind of where the last part is where which is I've been doing pretty much mostly the same way since I've been doing it. Is saying is like, is there maybe like some kind of camp we could just send him to?
Uh-huh.
Because like that's the conversion therapy I'd be supportive of.
Mhm.
And if he came back and he was into guys, like what if that was a trade-off? Like he went to a camp and he wasn't Christian anymore, but now he's into fellas. I don't know, maybe that'd be better. And maybe they could just gay the prey away.
Uh-huh.
And that's a line that usually goes pretty well.
Uh-huh.
And then I add a little bit to that because that's the bit that I did at the Burr show.
Mhm.
And before that I did that, I'm like, I got to tell my kid I'm doing this. Like I've never told him that I was working on this, and I was a little
Uh-huh.
scared because then I'd get to talk about. I just told my kid that I was doing this on stage, or that I was doing it at this show tonight because I needed to tell him about it, and I was a little nervous because what if he told me he didn't want me to? Like, what if he's just like, Dad, please don't talk about this on stage? Then I would have to lie
Uh-huh.
and tell him that I wasn't, because I'm definitely going to.
Uh-huh.
And then he actually watched a video of me doing this set. Like he watched me because he was supportive of it, and he did come back from being Christian or whatever. Now he's like back to being pagan, but he just was worried that people he liked watching it, but he was worried that people would think he was Christian. I'm like, that's the part you have a problem with? Like that's the really? I'm like, okay. And then like, but he's like, Dad, what? How do they know I'm not Christian still? I'm like, and then I'm like, I don't know. At the end of it, I never really figured out how to tell people after the show when they come up and ask, because a lot of people come up and like talk to me about it and like want to discuss the whole thing. I'm like, oh, he's not anymore. Da, da, da. He's like, tell me this, that. And my 13-year-old son said, Dad, tell them that the camp worked. And I'm like, oh, dude, I love you so much.
Yeah, that's good.
and, and then he's like, but like, try to make also like, I'm not gay. But then I'm like, I can't just say, but he's not gay at the end. That's not fun.
Mhm.
Um, but then I just added some stuff to where I was like, made some stuff up. So like, oh, but I tell him all the camp worked, and I go, hey, everybody, his girlfriend doesn't like that because, she's like, oh, everyone's gonna think he's gay. And I'm like, could be worse. Could think he's still Christian.
Yeah.
And then it was funny too, because I got off stage, and this actually happened in person because I actually brought him to a show where I did this.
Uh-huh.
And he's just like, Dad, you didn't tell him what I said. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you didn't tell him that I wasn't gay. I'm like, I could have just say he's not gay. I had to make it a thing. Dude, I made you way cooler. Now I made up that you have a girlfriend. Like,
Yeah.
so this whole thing. And after the Burr show, somebody came up to me and was saying nice stuff and was like, hey, I liked your set. And you really talking to me and Nate, both of us, like, hey, great job, love. Then he's like, oh, sorry for wasting your time. I'm like, dude, I will spend all night standing here.
Yeah.
This is why there's way easier ways to not make money than stand-up comedy. This is what I will cancel my Uber and go star other friends right now to stand here and talk to you all night.
Uh,
And while I'm doing that, this lady comes by and she shouts out, a lady who didn't like it. She shouted at me and she slammed the door and drove off. And she shouted, I'm a Christian, because she was at the show. She was just
uh-huh.
mad because a lot of people at the show were mad about my bit. And
Uh-huh.
she yelled, I'm a Christian, slams the door and drives off. So she shouted something she wanted me to know, but didn't want to discuss it. She was a Twitter post.
Uh-huh.
Um, and in the bit, like I shouted at her, it's gonna be okay, I'll gay for you.
Yeah.
Just trying to play on, I'll pray for you. In the beginning, when I tell my son it's gonna be okay, I was trying to call back to that. So I've been playing with bits and pieces of this. And I know I kind of butchered it, and because I do it different ways every time
Yeah.
I'm talking about this, and it's the thing that made this merch. I don't know, is it backward? No, it
Uh-huh.
looks straight this way.
Yeah, it does.
Yep. Gay the Pray Away, and
Gay
it's
the
got
pray
my
away.
after
Yeah.
Laugh Your Lukoff, and I've been selling these recently, and I'm giving 10% of the money to the Trevor Project that helps people who aren't straight with crisis prevention, suicide prevention for young people.
Mm.
Got a close friend and a comedian who lost their son to that last year, and just thinking of like, I kind of felt like I was appropriating making merch, making money off a thing that is not a thing that I am. Then I was like, oh wait, I can give to something and make it like,
Yeah.
help something.
Yeah, I love that. So a couple notes that I came up with on this
Yeah,
is
hit me.
so you and your wife don't have any desire to set foot in a church, but your son doesn't drive yet, and he needs you to take him. So I can picture you guys just rolling past the church and kind of pushing him out of the car while it's still moving and saying, "We'll be back in an hour and a half." And please walk down a block from the church so we can pick you up there.
Oh,
Uh,
because we're so embarrassed. Oh, that's really, dude. I'm so glad we're doing this because I would have never thought of that.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
I was thinking about that, and it's funny because my kids and I kind of went through the same thing because I'm an atheist, but we sent our kids to Catholic school for a while because we didn't like the public schools,
Mm.
but and I've been thinking about doing a joke about this too because they both turned out to be almost exactly like me. And they've got
Oh,
some spirituality, but they're not they don't think Christianity's all that.
and were you
But
scared about that going in? Were you worried, like, oh shit, it's worth it, but maybe, was there a little bit of that?
oh yeah, I didn't want them to get like programmed or
That's
indoctrinated or
that's my
anything like that.
fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, from anything,
But
whatever it is. But
yeah, I always taught, my wife and I always taught them to have their own mind. We never
of
really
course,
pushed anything down their throats. So I think that helped. But yeah, there was some fear there, but there was also fear they wouldn't get an education if they went to the public school. So
that's fair. I actually
yeah,
knew a lot of Jews growing up. Since I grew up Jewish, a lot of Jews went to Catholic school because, well, they had a little money and they
yeah,
wanted the best education possible,
yeah,
and that's
yeah,
where they believe that to be. So
yeah, yeah.
makes
That's pretty
sense.
cool.
If you want to use any of this stuff, if it helps at all, that Jews go there too. I don't know.
Yeah,
Um,
I like that. You don't have to be Catholic to go to
uh,
Catholic school. And I was thinking about, so that you could incorporate the fact that your son isn't gay, just being a little disappointed that you don't have that gay son that you can talk to your friends about, and be shown as a progressive parent. Just
yeah.
it's like, man, he's into the girls. We're hoping that that's just a phase, and we can finally have that showcase kid that we can talk to our friends about, something like that.
There might be something there. That's
Yeah,
fun. I just like the
because
thought.
yeah, you're still telling folks what's real, but
Yeah.
then you can also throw in the fact, we're just a little disappointed,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Like, it could be cool if he was.
yeah. So what else you got?
So the other one that's a much less baked, I guess I might say kind of how I do it. Yeah. So I've been losing weight. I somehow have been losing weight on purpose. The last 14 months, I've lost 70 pounds. And usually they go like, oh yeah. And then I'm like, oh, I went all to my head. And the way I'm
Hmm.
thinking about it is I went to my head and saying something about it went all to my hair too, because I had shorter hair in the beginning of all this.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that I tried different diets. Oh no, sorry. The next part of that, like doing is saying, yeah, one thing I really like about it is I actually fit normal clothes now. I really like getting like just like a solid size. I can just buy a shirt or whatever and just be pretty sure it's gonna fit.
Hmm.
Because I got to a weird size. I got to a 2.5X, which a 2.5X is where you try to pull your 2X shirt over your body. It's
Uh-huh.
like trying to pull an empty balloon over a basketball.
Yeah.
Something's gonna break, and none of these things were meant to do what you're doing with them. It's just not.
Uh-huh.
And then a 3X shirt, you just flap it in the wind. So that's nice. And I did different diets. I started out looking at, like, I did Weight Watchers for a bit, which was neat because they give you points based on your weight and all these things, and you eat those, eat the food, eat the points like a fat man, Pac Man, and you eat those points and you succeed, you win the level, you lose weight, but then they give you less points, like some bullshit golf diet. I don't think that's the exact term there, but like there's something there in that where I'm like, this is stupid. I get less points now. Then
Uh-huh.
I was doing keto, but you got to track so much stuff. You got to track your ketos. Oh, sorry, you got to track your carbs, your macros, your metachlorians. And I'm like, oh, that's where I try to figure out what my nerds are at. Yeah, it was a trap. Um,
Uh-huh.
but then I just did this thing where I just stopped eating carbs. Like that's what I did. Basically, what I did is if I saw a loaf of bread, I just wouldn't eat it. And if I saw a glass of milk, which I love milk, it's fantastic, I would just wait till it arrived at its superior state cheese.
Yeah.
Because cheese is just someone saying milk, you could do better. And there's
Uh-huh.
gets the carbs out of that. But I do miss pizza. I love pizza. Pizza's fantastic. I missed it a lot. And there's all these recipes for keto pizza. There's all these ones that are basically just cheese. You make a cheese crust and more cheese and sauces and toppings, which is a great, delicious way to have a heart attack. But what it's not is pizza. It's not pizza. There's all these recipes for pizza lookalikes, but none of them are a pizza taste alike. None.
Uh-huh.
And so they actually have a name for the thing I'm doing. It's called Dirty Keto. I think it's a stupid name. I think the same person who made up the Dare program's name made up that name just to try to sound cool. Dare to keep kids off drugs, dare to keep middle-aged men pretentious. And it does that second one. But then I like drinking, so I went to a bar and I was like, oh, I can't have, I'm not drinking this happy bread juice that we know is beer right now,
Mm.
unfortunately. I love it, but I'm not doing that. So I go up to the bartender, I order a whiskey and a Diet Coke, because I'm a badass.
Mhm.
And they're confirming my drink, and he confirms my drink. He says this beautiful thing. The bartender says, "Oh, whiskey diet." I went, was that the most beautiful, shortest song I've ever heard
Yeah.
in my life? Is that whiskey diet? Is that what I am doing? I am definitely calling it the whiskey diet.
Uh-huh.
That exact, yes, yes, I would like that, but I'm feeling extra healthy, so please make it a double.
Yeah.
That's what, and that's what I got for that. That's the whiskey diet bit.
I love it. So going back to front, I have just a couple notes. So the whiskey diet thing, I think, is a great way to end it. It's perfect. And I would end it the fact, I'm Niko Lukoff, and you can go to whiskeydiet.com to sign up for your own personal whiskey diet plan,
Oh my god,
which
I should do this. I'm gonna do this.
yeah, which may include such great flavors as bourbon, scotch, and just go down the line of blended whiskey. Whatever whiskey you want, you can have, and I like that. The
Oh,
other
that's
thing
fun.
is I love the 2.5 XL. And one thing that you could add to that is
Yeah.
now that I'm down to regular sizes, I can go into TJ Maxx and actually buy clothes because there wasn't anything there that fit me before.
Yeah. Do they not have big clothes? I've never even been to a TJ Maxx before. Is that the
Yeah,
kind of the
yeah, it's actually so I do one about my height, and I haven't done it forever because it's not that funny. But because I'm 6'5" and there's no tall clothes there, very
Mm.
very rarely, and I just say, yeah, you guys are lucky to be normal height. The only thing I can buy at TJ Maxx is socks, and it's never really hit. But
Yeah,
I think in your case, the fact that you could go to a normal, I mean, you could even say Walmart.
yeah.
I can go to Walmart and get clothes that fit because the 3XL was too much and the 2XL wasn't enough, and now I can just get an L and be happy about it, something like that.
I can get an L and call it a W.
Yeah, there
Ooh.
you go.
Ah,
Yeah,
'cause
yeah, I like that. Yeah,
I love this kind of shit, dude. I could do this forever.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
You've that definitely has legs. You just have to, and I can't tell you how to put it all together so
sure.
that it just you've got tags throughout. But
Yeah. That's part of just doing it.
yeah,
Yeah. And I've done it a couple of times, always a couple times different, little different. And that is actually, I think I'm going to do that on the website thing because that is a merch item that I'm planning on as my next merch design is a
uh-huh,
shirt that says whiskey diet and has like a glass of whiskey or something on it. I think
yeah,
that'd be kind of fun.
yeah. I like it. Yeah, that's definitely got legs. And if you didn't do it, I'd probably steal it from you because I do whiskey and diet too. So
Nice. I was worried because I'm like, has anybody talked about that? Like, because I usually don't do stuff that people have that I'm worried that someone's talked about because I'm usually talking about a specific experience that isn't a super normal experience. This is
Yeah,
probably among the most relatable things because everyone's tried to diet or had a thing or whatever.
yeah.
So I'm excited to keep playing with it and do it at a show in Portland where it's at a place called the Bourbon Lounge and they have like liquor sponsors on the show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
So I'm looking forward to playing with it there.
yeah, that's great because you have that drink in your hand and
Yep.
you can
So the
do a
whiskey diet.
visual. Yeah, you can do a visual as you do it. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a fun talk. I know you got a comedy show to get ready for that I'm
Yeah, I
gonna
should probably
be in
hop
the
on.
audience. But, where can, folks find you online and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I think so. Laugh Your Lukoff. You see on the thing there.com is my website right now. It's just a link tree page with links to just socials and stuff. Basically, I'm Laugh Your Lukoff, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all the places. If you're a comedian or an aspiring comedian or just a comedy fan that would like to see a little behind the scenes of a bunch of weirdos on the internet, join Displaced Comedians. And if you happen to be in Portland, Oregon next month between February 9th and 17th, I got 4 shows just spread out during that time that I'm really excited to get to hop in on. And if you want any of those stickers, shoot me a message. Got them on Venmo right now. I'm putting together a website to be able to order those and some other stuff
Mhm.
online. And just want to connect and you're a comedian, want to talk. Love to. Appreciate it.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thanks so much for being on the show. I'm glad we could connect.
All right. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate
All
it.
right.
Thanks for having me.
And let's get off of